everybody, it's me, Zach. Under that blanket is Potato, and welcome back to our channel. Hey everybody, it's me, Zachary Michael. Hi, hello, how are you doing? And I am back again with more information, more content, more commentary on Life Plus Cindy. If you're not familiar with Life Plus Cindy, I do have a Life Plus Cindy playlist now because I've made enough videos to have one. So you can go get more context there because at this point, I've been through a lot when it comes to Cindy's channel and the short amount of time I've been covering her over here on the Zachary Michael channel. And this week she has live streamed for about 10 hours, joining some of the other girlies that I cover over here on this channel in this little live streaming era where we just stream for hours and hours and hours at a time, and Zach's small attention span struggles to keep up. So I'm gonna do my best to cover those things today, but I do want to give a few prefaces so that you kind of know what to expect going into today's video. First of all, I want to say I really appreciate that so many people have wanted to hear my thoughts about Cindy's live streams and where she's come from and where she's been and what she's been up to. I really appreciate that you all have been patiently waiting for that and that you value my opinion so much. It means a lot to me. It has taken me a little bit of time to get through this because, like I said, I have a small attention span, so 10 hours of live streaming content is a lot to get through, and to be honest, I can't say that I fully watched all 10 hours of the live streaming. I tried to watch good chunks of it and then also supplement with some other information from other places. So like the Life Plus Cindy Snark subreddit, there was one thread that had a very detailed outline of at least the first stream that I read through. I also have watched some additional clips and things like that from a channel here on YouTube called Katie L. L as in Lisa. La Lisa, if you're a Blackpink fan. And then also I've gotten a lot of additional details and opinions and thoughts from people in my Twitch community during my live streams on Twitch. And obviously all of those sources of information are probably biased to whatever the people sharing that information think and feel about Cindy. So keep in mind that if you want like the full context and tone of Cindy's messages and storytelling and things like that, the best place to go get that information is from Cindy's channel itself. But yeah, I likely am probably not going to be able to cover every single thing that was shared in the 10 plus hours of live streaming, and I probably will miss something just because it was so much content. And I also want to say that this is going to be much less of like a reaction as I typically do in terms of like sitting down and watching something and giving my reaction as I watch it the first time, and more generally just me updating folks on what happened and sharing my thoughts as I go along. And I say that because I just want to be clear that I have had time to think about these things. I've actually gone back and forth and felt conflicted about a lot of the things that she shared, and I hope that we can have a conversation about the nuance of the entirety of all of the stuff happening in Cindy's life. So to get started, I think it might help to have a little bit of a reminder of where we left off in terms of the last thing I covered on my channel. And the last thing I covered on my channel is when she drove overnight from Arkansas to Colorado to go and see Andrew. And her words at the time, she was talking about it being a booty call and whoever, whatever. And generally, from what I recall, everybody at the time was like, what the fuck, like why? What the fuck and why? People also criticized her at the time for some unsafe driving because she talked about how she had very little sleep and was driving all the way through. She did have to stop for breaks, but she brought the dogs along, and that was usually what the breaks were for, so that the dogs could go to the bathroom. But in general, people were concerned that she was driving while essentially very sleep deprived. There was also a moment while she was there in Colorado where she, for whatever reason, at the time she didn't really explain this, but for whatever reason, she was driving around at 3 a.m. and got a flat tire, and Andrew had to come rescue her. We got to witness her having a bacon and cheese salad alongside a baked potato with just bacon and cheese, no potato. And at the end of that video, she said that she was on her way back to Arkansas and Andrew was coming coming with. And yeah, that's where we left off. I will say I didn't cover it, but shortly after that, she ended up privating everything on her channel and disappearing from the internet for like, I think a week or something like that. And before we get too far into the live streaming things and things we need to talk about that, I just want to say that none of this is where I started when it came to Cindy. And I mean, I guess in some ways you can say it's a little bit where we started, because I did get recommended initially a video from her that was about Andrew leaving her the first time. But like in general, even then, she was working really hard on herself, or seemed to be working really hard on herself. She was doing a lot of the things for the first time, like getting a car, taking public transportation for the first time. She was learning how to grill on her own for the first time, taking the dogs to the groomer on her own for the first time. She also was actively talking about the different types of therapy she was trying out. She was doing a group therapy for BPD. I believe that's specifically the diagnosis she has, and she was also doing some individual counseling. And on top of all that, just like showing her day-to-day life and like being honest about how she felt about her partner leaving her, but also it felt like being a little bit realistic about him leaving her, and like her working towards trying to be okay with being alone after being married to this man for 15 years. So while it certainly was a little bit messy and I enjoy watching some mess, it also felt like, in a way that a lot of the people I cover on my channel are not like this, it felt like she was actually working on herself, and I was intrigued, I was hooked, I wanted to watch more. I mean, even when she went to Arkansas and moved there, because that was another part of this, like, improving herself, although Andrew moved to Arkansas with her too, which was a thing. A big thing. Again, go catch up on all the videos I made if you don't know the full story. But even in Arkansas, she showed herself like doing all kinds of interesting things, and maybe like the bar is literally in hell for me when it comes to like a good vlogger because I'm just so used to not seeing great vlogging content. But she was like going out into nature, showing us like little fun shops in her town that she liked to go to, things that I thought would be genuinely interesting. But something about this week and the live streams has honestly also just been very hard for me to like motivate myself to watch or to comment on or care about, because it's so different. It's so far away from where I started in this journey with Life Plus Cindy. And I think it's because there's been such a large emphasis on the negative behaviors and almost no emphasis on anything she's doing to work on herself. And when I say concerning behaviors, I mean, for example, her coming onto the very first live stream that she did and saying that, you know, she hasn't eaten anything in like 2 days and all she's consumed is like rum and Coke. Well, specifically I think Diet Coke, but either way, you get the point. And actually, I don't even know if it was rum. Alcohol. She's been consuming alcohol. Which is concerning because in the past on her vlogs, even since I've been watching, she talked about how her family has a history of drinking, how she doesn't want to be a person who deals with her problems through drinking, how she really needs to stop drinking on camera, how she needs to not do all of that, and like, if anything, it feels like the drinking has been ramped up since she said all of that. And you know, there's been other concerning behaviors. For example, like I just got done talking about the like driving to Colorado on little to no sleep, and then following up the criticism she got about that, because she did get criticism. And literally just yesterday, I got a notification that she was live on Instagram, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. One, because I hate getting notifications, so I was like, why am I getting a notification about this? But two, I opened it up because I was curious, because I knew she's been live streaming on YouTube so much. I'm like, what is she doing on Instagram? And she was driving. She was driving. She's on this trip to go see this King Gizzard band or whoever, whatever. And she was driving and reading the chat. And it's just like, girl, did you not take the criticism you just got about, you know, distracted driving, whatever it might be? Like, I don't understand why this is what we're doing. So yeah, I think it's just been tough to find the words to talk about this situation that's respectful to understanding that, like, Cindy is clearly in a very not good place, but yet she's on here on social media, publicizing it to the world, streaming it to the world, monetizing it to the world, and, like, how I should feel as a viewer. And also a content creator who's making content about her. So I hope you'll keep those things in mind as I go through and discuss these things about Cindy's live streams. The other thing about these live streams is that they also highlight that the way Cindy tells stories just lets you know that she's an unreliable narrator and that the timeline is fucked. Like, I don't understand Cindy's timeline in terms of, like, how and when she found out about different things. Now, certainly, I don't expect her to know all the details of Andrew's cheating and when he did what, because, like, she can only know whatever Andrew had to tell her about that. But I think you'll see as we discuss this today that Cindy conveniently tells things when she feels like it's appropriate to tell things. And, like, you don't know how long she's known that information, and she often tells on herself and is like, I actually did know about this and I'm just now coming to terms and being able to tell you all of it. And I'm not saying that's inherently a bad or a good thing, I'm just saying it's confusing. And I think it also leads to frustrations from viewers who are like, you knew this the whole time, and yet you were still doing all of these things, and you also didn't tell us all of this, and you didn't give us that context, and that's very frustrating. And she has a history of doing this on her channel, even in the short amount of time that I've been watching her. A good example of her, like, revising her story after the fact is when she said that she got flowers from Andrew sent to her in Arkansas when he had gone back to Colorado. And when she did the video of her getting the flowers, like, it was the main objective of the video. Like, it was in the title, it was in the thumbnail, and it was all about, like, why would my ex send me these flowers? I don't get it. I don't understand what his motivation for this was. That was, like, the whole concept of the video. But then when people in our comments were saying, like, oh, Andrew's being manipulative, like, that's really messed up, I don't understand why he would do that to you, that's a problem, that's an issue, run, don't keep the flowers. Then she came back in the very next video and was like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, please don't think he's manipulative. Like, what I didn't tell you is that I had been texting him for 2 days and he had been ignoring all my texts, and so he sent the flowers because he felt like that would make up for ignoring me. And so it's like, she presented the story one way, and then when the reaction to it wasn't what she wanted, she went back and changed the story. I don't know if that was to protect Andrew or what her motive for revising the story is, but she revised it. And even during the first time where she decided to leave the internet, she talked about how she had kept from us that she had actually been talking to Andrew way more than she ever alluded to when she was vlogging and things like that. And certainly it's her prerogative to share whatever she wants. I'm just saying that it leads to a lot of confusion. I think it leads to, like, a certain level of mistrust with the audience, and it's frustrating. Going into these live streams, she does explain why she took her channel down for a while, and by took it down, I mean she privatized everything. And her main thing was just that it was too hard to take some of the criticism that she was getting over the trip to Colorado, because she knew people were right about that, and she was frustrated over how correct they were. I think it also had to do with the fact that, like, while Andrew was with her, she was not having a good time either. But going back to the piece about getting criticism and that being a part of the reason why she took down all of her videos and things like that, I do just want to say that the last time that she left the internet, she was coincidentally, or maybe not so coincidentally, getting a lot of feedback for some, like, racist comments and behaviors that she had done in a video. And she claimed at the time that that was not the reason that she took everything down. That the reason was actually because she got doxxed by people because she put too much information about herself on the internet. And so I'm just, like, now thinking a couple things. One, it's now been twice since I've been watching you that when you were pushed with criticism that you just decided to leave everything behind It's actually, I think, like the third time that I know of in history, because there was also a time where she got into some hot water on Discord where people found out that she was talking shit about one of the people in her Discord, and she quit and left everything behind then as well. So it's a little bit of a history here. But also, if the reason that you left the last time is because you overshared and had too much information, and then you went and privated a bunch of videos and left some of those videos privated even when you came back because they had too much information, and now that you're back, you have put every single video back onto your channel, including the ones where you overshared too much information, then was the reason that you left really because you overshared too much information? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't understand, there was a period of videos from like the first video where Andrew left her up until a certain point, like right when she quit the last time. And she left all of those private even when she came back to YouTube because she felt like there was too much information in there, too personal, etc. But now they're all back on her channel. So I'm just like, what? Is it really that the reason? I don't know. But also, as we talk, I want you to let me know if you think she's learned anything about oversharing too much information, because I think it's still an issue for her. So the other major information that you need to know from her very first live stream was essentially just that, like, the reason she ended things this time with Andrew. So basically she said, Andrew, we're done. She packed up his stuff and she said, you gotta get out of here. And it's all because she found out that Andrew actually had, like, another woman who he was actually serious with. And when I say serious with, I mean when he left her the first time, he had told Cindy that he went to go live with his mom, but he was actually living with this other woman. And apparently Cindy found out about this woman after she reactivated her Instagram the first time she left the internet, and she went onto Andrew's sister's Instagram and saw a photo of this woman. So she also asked to see Andrew's phone and go through his messages, and found messages from Andrew to this woman saying that he loved her and this, that, the other. Apparently this woman is also much younger than Cindy. It sounds like this woman is in her 20s. And Cindy referred to this woman as being chubby and that Andrew was into chubby girls, which felt like an unnecessary added detail, but here we are. And this is the part about the timeline that's confusing to me, because initially when she was saying all of this, I'm like, oh, she just found out about this on Sunday, and that's like what led to her kicking him out. But I feel like after listening to many different parts of many live streams that she knew about this when she went to Colorado. And so I'm just like, the way she presents it's confusing, or maybe I'm also just dumb. Maybe I'm just stupid, and that's fine if I am, but very confusing, because it sounds like she knew about this when she went to Colorado. And also that might have even been like the motivating factor for her going to Colorado, to try to like win him back, get him to like come be with her and choose her over this other woman. Which also, just to be clear, is fucked on his part. Like, how he went from living with Cindy to like leaving her, moving in with this other woman, to leaving this other woman to move to Arkansas with Cindy, to leaving Cindy in Arkansas to move back to Colorado to be with this woman, and then temporarily leaving this woman again to go to Arkansas with Cindy. Why are you putting these women through this? I mean, I hope both of these women know their worth is so much more than this man, but like, also, you're an asshole. Like, you are, say what you want about Cindy. I think there's certainly things to criticize about her involvement in this situation, but fuck Andrew, honestly. Other things to note about Cindy and her relationship with this woman is that she doesn't really know this woman, but she did take time to go through Andrew's phone records and find her number and thus call this woman and get into like different altercations with her over the phone, which I mean, I'm sure she's just doing it out of anger, but I think is a choice. Because regardless of whether or not this woman knew about Cindy or not, like, I think the person Cindy should focus her frustrations on are Andrew. But I don't know. I mean, I won't fault her too much about that. I do think it's, like, also a lot to be going through phone records to find it. Like, I guess really what I'm saying is, like, I don't know how this is gonna actually help Cindy find any peace. And in the last live stream that Cindy did, she basically started it all off by saying, like, besties, I have even worse news about this situation, and that news is that this woman is pregnant. And, in fact, the woman is due in 3 weeks. So apparently Andrew has known about this pregnancy since November, which happens to have been only 4 months after Cindy and Andrew lost their pregnancy. And I will say that Cindy has always been very upfront and honest about how losing that pregnancy has been very difficult for her. A large part of her videos in the past year have been her talking about like processing that event and being able to come to terms with like her struggles with getting pregnant and what it might mean for her to not be able to have children and stuff like that. So obviously this is a big blow to her. Obviously this is something that is probably very difficult to deal with, knowing that Andrew is having a child with this other woman. And with all of that, like, all my empathy goes to Cindy, because I'm sure it's very difficult for her to process and deal with that. This is another situation where I'm a little bit confused about, like, at what point she knew about this information, because she did make it sound like it was kind of brand new information in this, but I feel like also alluded to knowing about it for at least a little bit. But either way, like, I'm sure it's very difficult and probably something that's difficult to, like, acknowledge to your audience, let alone to yourself. Outside of those things, like, which are the major, like, plot points, I guess. I don't know, saying a plot point when it's like these people's actual lives feels weird, but I guess like the main points of like why Cindy is where she's at right now. Outside of those things, there were a few other things that happened in the live streams that I think are worth talking about. One of those things is Cindy's need for like fulfillment through other people. I understand, at least based on like what people have said in my comments and or on Twitch, that, you know, it's very important for people with BPD to have, like, a person. I personally don't want to speak about that too much because I don't fully understand. I don't have BPD. I don't know anybody that I know of that has BPD, so I'm not super familiar with it. But I will say, like, you can tell in the way she talks about things on her live streams that she's really looking to fill some type of void from Andrew. And I see it happening a lot with, like, her viewers, and like this need to come on and fill her time live streaming for hours, talking to her viewers and forming these parasocial relationships with them. But even more specifically, I'm concerned because she has noted already that she's met up with viewers and befriended them prior to all of this happening. But during these live streams, she is going to this King Gizzard concert. And she's also going to a concert in Atlanta maybe at some point, I think, if I recall. And she's like actively in her live streams trying to recruit people to come to these things with her. And I don't have anything against meeting strangers from the internet. I mean, that's how I participated in dating for a long time. That's how I met Noel. And I also just recently, like, flew to Seattle to meet a group of people that I played Fortnite with for the past 2 years. So, like, I'm not opposed to it. I think there are ways you can do it safely. I think my concern comes from a place of she doesn't know these people at all, right? Like, I spent quite some time talking to Noel to get to know him, met him in a public place and things like that before we started dating. And also with the people I met in Seattle who I played Fortnite with, like, I talked to them at least once a week in voice chats while we're playing. So like I've established relationships with those people, just as an example. And Cindy, for all I know, is not like establishing relationships in the same way with these kinds of people. And not to say those people have bad intentions or anything like that. I just feel like she's in such a vulnerable place that, like, meeting strangers from her internet chat who know a lot about her because of her oversharing, but she doesn't know anything about them, it's just, like, a little uncomfy for me. And then on top of that, she really is jumping right back into the dating pool. And I think that's generally fine. I'm not one to, like, police people on when they can start dating after a relationship ends or anything like that. I think my only concern about it is just that, like, she clearly needs some time to, like, heal and recover and become her own person and, like, work on herself. That I'm not sure that she's really giving herself that time. I mean, if she just wants to go hook up with people, like, live your truth, do what you need to do. It's just the way that she talks about it in her streams makes it sound like she's just looking for some kind of replacement. And it's also interesting because previously, like, after the first or second time, I think the second time Andrew left her, she was like, I need to take time. It's too soon to be doing all of this. And it just seems like a different story from then. And then the last thing from her streams that I really want to talk about, and I think she has, like, sort of tried to apologize about this, but I think it's worth discussing in case anybody doesn't really understand, like, why people would have been upset by a comment like this. But she had been talking, again, on the note of, like, dating people and things like that, about how it would be so much easier if she could just, like, date women or if she was interested in women. Which, if you're a part of the LGBTQIA community, you probably heard straight people in your life say this at some kind of point in your life, and it is a particularly frustrating thing to hear people say. One, just because, like, all relationships are hard. A queer relationship is no easier than a straight relationship, just to be clear. Like, relationships take work, and just because you're dating somebody of the same gender as yourself or whatever does not mean that it's gonna be easier. But also because this, like, notion that it would be so much easier to be a lesbian or bisexual or whatever it might be is just, like, false. Like, it's actually very hard to be gay in the current atmosphere, but also really always has been, at least for my life, to like, live proudly and confidently as a gay person in America. And certainly there are some places that are much easier to be gay. Like, I feel very fortunate that I live in Chicago, which is very progressive in at least that particular area. But even here in Chicago, I have experienced, like, homophobia, and I've lived in other places in the country, especially, like, rural areas of the country, where the homophobia is far more intense than it is here. And I think that's a lot of places, unfortunately, in the United States right now. If you turn on the news, it's, like, all about trying to villainize LGBTQIA people from, like, the alt-right or more conservative end of the political spectrum. And certainly, I don't think it would be easier for you to be in a women-loving women relationship in Arkansas, of all places. So I think that comment from her is just, like, a little tone deaf to, you know, what LGBTQIA Americans are experiencing right now, and it would not be probably easier for her to be in a relationship with a woman than it would be with any other man that's just not Andrew. Because also, let's be honest, that Andrew is not representative of all men, although there probably are plenty like him out there. So I guess just to share my general overall thoughts about Cindy's return to the internet through all this live streaming, I just really honestly feel like she's learned nothing from this whole experience. Granted, I feel like the situations that she's been a part of have just, like, continuously, gradually gotten more intense and more emotionally challenging. So it makes sense that she's probably able to deal with these things less rationally than whenever I first started watching her. But all of this feels like an incredible amount of, like, oversharing and poor personal decisions on her end, regardless of the things that Andrew has done in this situation. And I honestly think time away from YouTube should have been great for her. And actually, I think she should have probably did it longer than what she did, because it sounds like she took a break while Andrew was with her in Arkansas, and I think she probably should have extended that break to after he left her, to go back to Colorado, because then she could really start focusing on herself. And I recognize the caveat of like, this is her job and she needs to make money, and she, especially now that she is the only person that can financially support her. But I think she should have just kept her videos up to begin with, if that was the case, and she could have been earning some level of AdSense revenue off of those videos. And she could have made a generalized statement on like a community tab post, or even popped on real quick to a video to be like, hey, some bad stuff has happened. Respectfully, I'm gonna take some time away to process it, work on it, and I'll come back when I can and explain what happened. I think that all would have went over much better than just like ghosting her audience, leaving them with questions and things like that, and would have given her time away to actually work on these things. And also, just to be clear, I feel like I'm talking about Cindy because this is Cindy's channel and I know everything from Cindy's perspective and what Cindy has said and things like that. And so my conversation is focused on her actions, her behaviors, and things like that. But I do just want to be very clear that Andrew really is a piece of shit. And I don't understand how he thinks it's chill for him to just be a two-timing pasta salad like this, but he can fuck off, truly. But when Cindy ended her last live stream, she said that she would be vlogging her trip to go see this King Gizzard band or whatever, and that she would be away during that time, so she wouldn't be live streaming. And so since she's gonna be vlogging that, I'm hoping that this might be the start of some more normal content from her, because I think if you're just coming in and you're seeing all these live streams and things like that, you're gonna realize like her normal content, if she goes back to it, is not that necessarily. Like every once in a while we did get some like crying vlogs and things like that. But like, it's really not necessarily that at all hours of the day on her YouTube channel. Which also, speaking of King Gizzard, I went to go look at when their concert was just to make sure I wasn't being stupid and she wasn't going to go on some other trip. It is like today, June 8th, that she's gonna be at this concert in Colorado. But I did also see that King Gizzard is gonna be here in Chicago from Sunday until Tuesday. And if I had any interest in King Gizzard or more time to just go see bands that I don't give a shit about, I would consider going, but I'm not. So here we are. Anyways, I recognize Cindy is a complicated, complex human. I think there is room definitely for nuance, and I hope people can see that nuance in her and, you know, recognize that there's a lot happening there that's probably influencing her decisions. And I also think it's still okay to hold her accountable or be frustrated when she's not being the person that you thought she was or expected her to be, or this, that, or the other. So that's all I have time for today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope it met all of your expectations. If you're brand new to my channel, make sure to subscribe to me down below. Hit the bell button so you get a notification every single time I post a new video. Make sure to leave me a comment, hit like, click share, and follow me on all my social media. I love you all so much, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!